Rabbi Dr Abraham Levy was the leader of the UK's oldest Jewish community. He was also awarded the OBE for his involvement in interfaith relations. Based at Bevis Marks and Lauderdale Road synagogues in London, he was a renowned scholar and writer and a tireless and very successful fundraiser for the many schemes and institutions he set up. Rabbi Levy's godson, Jonathan Sacerdoti, has been telling me more about him.
He was a champion of the Western Sephardi tradition of tolerance and blended his religion and faith and culture with the sort of down-to-earth appreciation of engagement with and involvement in secular life. So really, he was a moderate at a time when I think that many, both in the religious and non-religious worlds, veered towards the extremes. And I think that's why generations of us who experienced his teaching and his friendship benefited from that.
Grant peace in your holy land and everlasting happiness unto all its inhabitants, so that Jacob shall again have peace and tranquility.
He was born in Gibraltar. He was also very much a British gentleman, so he had that balance going as well. He had an eye for elegance. He was always immaculately turned out. Our community wears top hats still to this day. And Rabbi Levy had the finest top hat. He was somebody that knew where to find just the right silk top hat.
And was he very strict about observances?
Rabbi Levy was an observant and Orthodox Jew, and he always found ways to engage with everyone, believing that I think any Jew who was trying to become a better Jew was a good Jew.
One of the things he did was to start a primary school. Can you tell us what his vision was for that school?
He started the Naima JPS school in London with an emphasis on combining the best secular education with a rigorous and intelligent religious one. So the children to this day in that school learn our prayers and traditions, but they also learn Hebrew reading and writing and in-depth biblical Hebrew and Rashi, which it gives them the skills to live a strong Jewish life beyond the school. And in a way, one of the things that I know made him proud was seeing former students bringing their own children through the gates years later.
And what was his approach to interfaith relations?
In the 90s, he traveled to Morocco to promote a culture of peace in the face of rising fundamentalism. And he also attended the Second Congress of Imams and Rabbis in Seville in 2006. As well as all that, he was at home a member of the Council of Christians and Jews and worked as a historian and a writer, which were two of his passions as well. He co-wrote a book in 1992 as part of what was then the commemoration of the 500th anniversary of the expulsion of the Jews of Spain by Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand, the Spanish Inquisition and the expulsion of the Jews. As well as his OBE, he was, because of that, awarded an honor from the Spanish government, the Encomienda de la Orden del Mérito Civil, if you'll forgive my Spanish. But it's impressive that this man engaged with other faiths in a historical way and also in a contemporary way, such that he was recognized for it, not just here with the OBE, but also in Spain.
I think he organised a trip to Gibraltar, did he not, for two leading religious figures?
Yes, he was a proud Gibraltarian through and through, all the way through. He had deep connections with Gibraltar from his family, and he carried on that connection all through his life. And yes, he organised that trip in which he took Christian leaders and the current chief rabbi to Gibraltar, to the Rock. I think they had a T-shirt made with something like the Rock Tour on it, and they got along famously. Those who were going there, and I think again that was one of the things he was so good at was bringing people together.
And he must have used those skills to the maximum when he put together a service in 2007, bringing together the many different strains of Judaism. Can you tell us about that event?
There are many strains of Judaism. Some are more traditional and orthodox, some are ultra-orthodox, some are liberal and reform these days, and they all have different outlooks on the religion and levels of observance of strict orthodoxy. So it's quite difficult at times to bring them all together in one place, especially for prayer services, because of ideological differences. But one of the things that Rabbi Levy excelled at was diplomacy. And he managed to do just that, to bring everyone together for that 350th anniversary of the readmission of the Jews to Great Britain. He also had in the congregation at Bevis Marks, which is Britain's oldest synagogue, the current king, the then Prince of Wales, and also Tony Blair, the Prime Minister. He managed to bring so many people together, but perhaps more impressively than royalty and prime ministers, he managed to bring together rabbis and leaders from all the strains, all the mainstream strains of Judaism within the UK, peacefully and happily.
So what is the importance of Bevis Marks to the community?
Well, it's the oldest synagogue in this country. It was opened in 1701, about 50 years after the Jews had been readmitted to England at the time of Oliver Cromwell. These Jews had arrived here from Spain, where they were being persecuted, and they came here ostensibly as Spanish Catholics. And they lived here for a little while, and then they said to themselves, what's the point of remaining here as Spanish Catholics when we are neither? Let us go to Oliver Cromwell and ask him if we can officially remain in this country.
I wonder what the reaction has been to news of his death.
It's no surprise that there's been thousands of messages sent to his family, to his son Julian, and to the community about the ways in which he really changed people's lives for the better. Among the people that he taught, for example, early on in his career, when he was at the Lauderdale Road Synagogue Hebrew classes, a sort of extra outside school Jewish education for children, many of whom weren't in Jewish schools at the time, he could have named past students there as Alan Yentob, the former creative director of the BBC, or Lord Neuberger, who became the president of the Supreme Court of the UK. These are people who, as children, studied in Rabbi Levy's Hebrew classes. So I think that the reaction around the world from all quarters has been one of just fond memory of somebody who really did wonderful things during his life, but the things that he did will live on really for generations because of the institutions he established and the ethos he instilled in them and their children and all of us going forwards.
Spread the tabernacle of your peace upon all the dwellers on earth. May this be your will, and let us say, Amen.
Rabbi Dr Abraham Levy, who's died aged 83.